democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Israel's Supreme Court has ordered the release of Khader Adnan, a Palestinian prisoner being held in Israel without charge or trial, who is in the 66th day of his hunger strike. Agence France-Presse reports Adnan has ended his 66-day hunger strike under a deal that will see him released in April. Khader Adnan has refused to eat since he was arrested in mid-December. Doctors say he's at immediate risk of death. In a video posted online Sunday, a voice believed to be that of Khader Adnan can be heard yelling from his hospital room, saying the strike will continue. The strike will continue until freedom, pride, and dignity.
The strike continues. The strike continues. The strike continues. Until there's freedom and dignity. Until there's freedom and dignity.
Adnan is being held under so-called administrative detention, which means Israel can detain him indefinitely without trial or charge. There are said to be at least 300 other Palestinians held on so-called administrative detention in Israeli jails. Palestinians jailed inside Israel are holding a 24-hour hunger strike in solidarity with Adnan in conjunction with a series of rallies planned in the occupied territories. For more, we're joined on the phone by Adnan's lawyer. We're also joined from Araba, Israel, by Khader Adnan's sister, Maali Mousa. And here in New York, we're joined by Bill van Esveld, a Jerusalem-based researcher at Human Rights Watch, focusing on Israel-Palestine. Bill, why don't we start with you? Explain the case of this prisoner who's in the 66th day of his hunger strike.
Khader Adnan is alleged by Israel to be a member of Islamic Jihad, which is a banned group that's carried out attacks on Israeli civilians in the past, but Israel has not alleged that he himself did anything wrong. He's been detained under administrative detention without any charges, without any ability to see any evidence against him after being arrested out of his home at 3:30 in the morning on December 17th. The day following that, he began a hunger strike in protest.
Where did he live?
He lived in Araba in the West Bank, in the northern West Bank near the town of Jenin. He has started this hunger strike, which has really galvanized a lot of anger at the administrative detention system, under which around 309 Palestinians are currently in detention inside Israeli prisons. And, you know, an unconfirmed report now from Reuters says that Adnan has made a deal that in exchange for the state promising to try him criminally, rather than to throw him into the administrative detention system, he will stop his hunger strike as of today, and that the state will release him on April 17th if no new evidence is discovered against him.
Talk about how many people are in the same situation he is in. How many prisoners? Well,
we know that there are at least 309 Palestinians in administrative detention. This is a system whereby you can be locked away for 6 months at a time on the order of the Israeli military without any evidence being presented against you and without your ability to see any of it. It's usually called classified or secret evidence that you're not able to see. Some of those people in administrative detention have been there for more than 2 years. There are about 16 people in detention for between 2 and 4.5 years. One man has been locked away for more than 5 years without any charge, any ability to appeal his case before a court.
How did you get involved with this case, Bill?
We heard about this case. I'm based in Jerusalem for Human Rights Watch. We heard about this case quite some time ago and have been following up with Khader's family and his lawyers and Physicians for Human Rights Israel, which is an Israeli nonprofit group that's been able to convince the Israeli prison authorities to allow them to come see him and provide some medical advice. But it's been quite difficult. He's actually been chained to a hospital bed for the last part of his detention, you know, with prison guards in the room at all times on the basis that he was a supposed security threat.
Talking to CNN yesterday, Israeli government spokesperson Mark Regev defended the policy of administrative detention, saying it's comparable to policies in place in other Western democracies.
It's clear that in terrorist cases often you rely on intelligence information. There are problems with sources and methods. And Israel, like other democracies, like the United States, like Great Britain, there's a certain amount of discretion that you have. But I think it's important to say here, if I might, that this man is a self-professed leader in Islamic Jihad.
Your response?
The administrative detention system throws out the most basic due process rights of those who are kept in jail this way. I mean, imagine that you're arrested out of your bed at 3:30 in the morning. You have no information about why you were arrested. Khader Adnan's family said, we don't know what it was this time. He's been arrested many times in the past. This is actually his 9th detention. And, you know, the Israeli government and others say, yes, member of Islamic Jihad. Well, that's fine. That's not really the issue. The issue is, why is he being arrested without charge? Why is he being thrown in jail, kept apart from his family, without any idea of what it was that he's alleged to have done wrong and any ability to defend himself against those charges?
Why is he shackled?
This is one of the strangest aspects of this case. A man who's been on hunger strike for more than 60 days was being shackled to his hospital bed on the claim that he presented a security threat to the security of the area. It seems hard to believe that a man with 2 prison guards in his hospital room, who was so weak he could barely move, would present any sort of threat that required shackling.
We're also joined on the telephone from Ireland by Danny Morrison, an Irish Republican writer and activist, former member of Sinn Féin, secretary of the Bobby Sands Trust. Bobby Sands was the Irish activist who died in 1981 during a hunger strike against British rule. Sands was on the 66th day of his hunger strike, the same day Khader Adnan is on today. Danny Morrison is now speaking out in support of Khader Adnan's freedom, joining us on the phone from Belfast. Danny, welcome to Democracy Now! You were in prison with Bobby Sands back in 1981?
No, I was not in prison at that stage. I was outside and was nominated by Bobby as his spokesperson. And so at the time of his election campaign, I did most of the radio and television interviews and also liaised with the international media community. I had been in jail and did come across Bobby in jail in 1973, and also I had been interned in my teens without charge or trial, which is the same as administrative detention.
Explain why you have gotten involved with Khader Adnan's case.
Well, first of all, I consider him to be a political prisoner. I consider myself as an Irish Republican, someone who is concerned with freedom and the rights of oppressed people around the world. After all, our struggle was supported far and wide by activists in South Africa, in jails in South Africa. In fact, in South Africa, when prisoners on Robben Island went on hunger strike, they described, the code word for it was, we're going to do a Sands. That was named after Bobby Sands. And Bobby Sands' name, lives around the world 31 years after his death. And we identify with the treatment meted out to these political prisoners by the Israeli authorities. And I don't know whether you have reported on this, but a few minutes ago, I got a message, and I'm not sure if it's true or not. I think it was reported on one news agency, perhaps Al Jazeera, that the Israeli authorities are going to release him. But I don't want to raise false hopes, but I don't know if that's true or not.
Mm-hmm. We're hearing different reports, but something along those lines. The Israeli Supreme Court is hearing this case as we speak, Danny Morrison.
Oh, I see. They brought it forward.
We are now joined by Maali Mousa. Danny, stay on the line. Maali Mousa is Khader Adnan's sister. We've been trying to reach her through the morning. She is speaking to us from Araba. We welcome you to Democracy Now! What is the latest news about your brother Khader, Maali?
From this morning, starting this morning, we have heard many rumors. Some of them were saying that it's fixed for months. No one will renew the administrative detention after this period, and he will stay there in the hospital to recover from the hunger strike. Another lawyer told us that no, we are going to make a deal to let him go out from the jail after a couple of days. But then we heard from the the Ministry of Prisoners that Khader will be released on April 17th, which means it's fixed 4 months. and he will stay in the hospital until he recovers from the hunger strike. But until now, we didn't hear anything, any information from the ministry itself or from prisoners club or by the lawyer. All of these things are. I'm not sure what's the good word.
Maali,
but, I think
Maali Mousa, we have just gotten this word from BBC. It says a Palestinian prisoner has ended his 66-day hunger strike over his detention in a deal that'll see him released in 2 months. Israeli officials say, that's according to Israeli officials, the Israeli Justice Ministry said it's decided to end Khader Adnan's administrative detention, but that he'll remain in custody until April 17th.
Yes, that's right. I think this is the true information. But in the same time, Khader was saying always that don't hear from anyone that I broke my hunger strike until I call you by phone. So we are waiting for a phone call from Khader to say that he ended his hunger strike or he holds it on. So we are not sure from the hunger that he stopped the strike or not.
So your brother has been held without charge for how long?
Until now, it's 67 days. They arrested him on December 17th, 2011, and now without any charge, of course.
How often were you able to see him?
We visited him before 2 days. It was on Sunday. Yes, it was on Sunday. We visited him on the hospital of the.
What did he look like?
He was very, very, very thin. His eyes were sunk, and his teeth were wide, and it seems that his lips are smaller and so soft. His skin is so soft, and his hands were so cold and so yellow.
And what did he tell you then?
He told us that I am going on this hunger strike until I have honorable deal or getting out from this jail. But in the same time, his spirits were very high.
Was that the first time you had seen him, Maali?
Yes, this is the first time for me, the third for his wife, and the second for my father.
And had you tried to see him before?
Yes, but we were refused.
Why were you refused?
No one knows that. They didn't say anything. We applied for a visit through a Damir Association, and when they refused it, we applied through Red Cross, International Red Cross, and they approved us to go there. But Khader was saying all the time that don't make the occupation, that the occupation is trying to whiten his badge. Don't believe him that he's good, that the occupation is good. Because he was arrested for almost 8 times before, and we have never visited him in the prison. Just my mother was allowed for a few times.
Bill van Esveld, this issue of being refused to be able to see these prisoners who have not been charged, who are being held. Araba speaking to us from the Maali Mousa speaking to us from Araba on the West Bank. Where is the prison?
Where is the prison? He's now, Khader Adnan is now being detained in a hospital in Sfat, or Safed, inside Israel. But of course his family, as we just heard, is in the West Bank. This is an aspect of the case that isn't discussed much, but it's actually quite important. It's a violation of Israel's obligations under the Geneva Conventions to detain people from the occupied West Bank in prisons or hospitals, in this case, that are inside Israel, precisely for this reason, that families are not able to visit their loved ones in detention without special permits, special Israeli permits, which are very difficult to come by, which can take months to apply for and finally receive. So in many cases, not just this case, but in the vast majority of cases, if someone is detained inside Israel, the family may not be able to see them for 4 to 6 months at a time. They may be released from prison before the family is actually able to see them.
Is this unusual because of the international attention on Khader Adnan's case that the Supreme Court is hearing it, and he, at least according to the latest news, this is all developing as we're on air, is ending his hunger strike and will be released on April 17th?
Clearly, you can see that international pressure and attention is changing the way the Israeli authorities have behaved with this case. It's not unusual formally that you could appeal as a Palestinian military court ruling. Remember, all of the things that have happened so far in his case have been in the military court system. It's not unusual that you could appeal that to the civilian high court, the Supreme Court of Israel, but usually these things take a very long time. In this case, the case was moved up and then moved up again, so that the hearing is now being held today.
The significance of the support actions, Maali, what difference they have made around the world? I think we may have just lost Maali. Let's try for Danny Morrison, who is in Belfast. Danny, how you heard about this case? In your case, in the case of Bobby Sands, he died on the 66th day of the hunger strike, which is actually the day that Khader Adnan is in right now. We heard his condition, that we heard that he may have ended this strike right now. But how you heard and why this is so important to you?
Well, I mean, I'm the secretary of the Bobby Sands Trust, and we maintain a website dedicated to the memory of Bobby Sands and the principles for which he fought and died. And we have an international section, and regularly we would report on the plight of Palestinians. And, of course, also from Ireland, people have been involved in the flotillas going to aid Gaza, which has been murderously interfered with by the Israeli authorities. Last Friday night, there was a very large protest outside Belfast City Hall, which was supported by Assembly members, Northern Ireland Assembly members, mostly from the Sinn Féin party. And, of course, there's been protests in Dublin. And I'm glad that these reports are correct, has ended his hunger strike, and I'm glad also that his release is being expedited. But doesn't it ridicule how allegedly dangerous he was in the first place, when Israel can turn around and say, well, we're releasing him in April? And it shows you that there's actually absolutely no information or valid information or intelligence that they can put before an authority in order to judicially process Khader. That is, if you accept that Israel has any judicial right to judge Palestinian people.
Well, I want to thank you all for being with us. We'll continue to follow this case, and we'll update you as we hear it, even on today's show. Bill van Esveld, researcher, Human Rights Watch, focusing on Israel-Palestine, based in Jerusalem, is in New York this week. Maali Mousa, thanks for joining us. Khader Adnan's sister, speaking to us from Araba in the West Bank, and Danny Morrison, who we've just been talking to, Irish Republican writer and activist, secretary of the Bobby Sands Trust, speaking to us from Belfast, Ireland. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org.